A very good evening to one and all. I welcome you all to this news analysis initiative. These are the articles that are important from today's newspaper. Without any further delay, we will move on to the first one. The first article, Bill likely soon to rejig higher education regulatory framework. This new Vikshit Bharat Shiksha Adhishtan Bill 2025 is basically about completely reshaping how higher education is regulated in India. Now, what is the government trying to do? The center wants to replace the current system where multiple bodies regulate colleges and universities with one single umbrella authority. Now, what are they creating? The bill proposes a new body called Vikshit Bharat Shiksha Adhishtan. It will have 12 members and act as the top authority for higher education. Under this, there will be 3 separate councils to look after regulation, accreditation and quality, and to look after the standards. And each council will have up to 14 members. Now, what happens to the existing bodies then? The bill subsumes University Grants Commission, All India Council for Technical Education and National Council for Teacher Education. So what about the funding? Earlier, UGC used to give grants directly to universities. Now, the bill says grants will be given through mechanisms decided by the Ministry of Education. So, financial control shifts more towards the government. What's new with foreign universities then? The bill allows foreign universities approved by the center to operate in India. Indian universities to set up campuses abroad. A policy framework to prevent commercialization of higher education. Because the accreditation will be outcome based, focus will be more on results, not just the paperwork. Now, why is the government doing so? That is very important. The government says this is a part of National Education Policy 2020 to improve the coordination, to raise quality and standards, to promote research and innovation, and reduce regulatory overlapping. The next article for the day is Courts must protect, not regulate free speech. Freedom of speech is the backbone of Freedom of speech is the backbone of democracy. Usually, threats to free speech come from the government or parliament. But this article warns that even courts must be careful not to overstep and start regulating speech instead of protecting it. Recently, in some cases related to online content, the Supreme Court suggested creating new regulatory bodies and drafting fresh guidelines to control online speech. This has raised concern because deciding what speech should be regulated is primarily the job of the legislature, not the judiciary. Why is this a problem? The first is India already has many laws regulating speech. IT Act sections deals with obscenity, privacy violation and cyber terrorism. Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita has provisions against obscene acts. IT Rules 2021 already regulate digital media and impose content restrictions. So the question is, do we really need more regulation? Number 2, courts should not create or suggest new laws. The Constitution follows separation of powers. Courts are meant to judge the validity of laws, not design new ones. The Supreme Court itself has earlier said it should avoid solving problems meant for Parliament. Number 3, danger of prior censorship. Regulation can easily turn into pre-censorship, which is dangerous. Earlier, Supreme Court judgments have clearly warned against blanket bans or prior restraints on speech. So, what does our Constitution say? Article 19, Clause 1, Clause A guarantees freedom of speech. Article 19, Clause 2 lists specific grounds on which speech can be restricted, like public order, security, defamation, etc. The Supreme Court has already ruled that no new restrictions can be added beyond Article 19, Clause 2. So, courts cannot expand restrictions just because speech feels offensive or immoral. Now, what is a global practice? Democracies like the European Union, United Kingdom, Germany, Australia focus on removing harmful content after publication, penalizing non-compliance. They do not promote blanket censorship or pre-approval of speech. So what's the core message? Courts must act as guardians of free speech, not regulators. Suggesting new speech laws risk chilling free expression, and regulation of speech should come only from parliament within the constitutional limits. When courts begin encouraging these kind of speech laws and the executive readily agrees, it creates a dangerous pathway to censorship, surveillance, and erosion of democratic freedoms. The next article for the day is the right moment to boost India-Ethiopia ties. Why are we looking at this article now? The reason is our Prime Minister is going to Ethiopia for a state visit. So why Ethiopia matters today? The first is the strategic location, located in the Horn of Africa, close to Red Sea trade routes. Number 2, political importance, headquarters of the African Union, regional diplomatic hub. Number 3, economic potential, large domestic market, manufacturing base, hydropower and renewables. Geopolitical relevance, it is a key player amid instability in Somalia, Sudan and the Red Sea region. And the recent BRICS membership, Ethiopia joining BRICS opens new multilateral cooperation avenues. See, if you look at the historical foundation of both the countries, India and Ethiopia ties date back over a century. Indian teachers and professors shaped Ethiopia's education system. Ethiopia was the pilot country for India's Pan-African e-network in 2007, and it is one of the largest African student communities in India, including the highest number of PhD scholars. So education remains a soft power strength for India. So what are the key pillars for future cooperation? The first is the education and skill development. We have to expand digital education, vocational training and university linkages, and new scholarship frameworks, tele-education models, and we should also align our skills with Ethiopia's industrialization needs. The second is the investment and economic engagement. Indian investments exceed $4 billion and it is backed by lines of credit since 2006. And the new focus areas like mining, pharmaceuticals, agro-processing and light manufacturing. And mining cooperation can support India's clean energy and semiconductor goals. The third is the defense and security cooperation. India helped set up Harar Military Academy in 1956 and it is also providing training support since 2009. And there is still scope for defense exports, capacity building and replacement of aging Soviet era equipment. And new defense MOUs and joint defense cooperation committees will also strengthen our institutional ties. Number 4, trade and regional integration. Ethiopia can be a hub under African Continental Free Trade Area for Indian companies. India's duty-free tariff preference benefits Ethiopian exports. So there is scope to update here basically to double taxation avoidance agreement and bilateral investment treaty. However, there are challenges which needs to be addressed like foreign exchange shortages, taxation and regulatory unpredictability, logistics constraints mainly due to landlocked geography, and investor confidence issues. The next is the multilateral and diplomatic momentum. We have enhanced our cooperation via BRICS, G20 and South-South platforms, and India's Sahar vision aligns with Ethiopia's regional role. India and Ethiopia are now at a strategic point. With Ethiopia rebuilding and India is expanding its African footprint, now the deeper cooperation in education, mining, defense and manufacturing can transform this relationship into a flagship India-Africa partnership. The next article for the day is a people-led climate intelligence movement. See, climate change action today depends heavily on monitoring, reporting and verification systems, which is MRV. Under the Paris Agreement, countries must track emissions, adaptation efforts and climate finance to show progress towards their climate commitments. And COP30 further strengthened this by introducing tools like the Global Implementation Tracker and Adaptation Indicators. India supports this approach but has clearly said two things. Developing countries need finance and technical support to build strong MRV systems. And climate governance must shift power to the ground level, to local communities who experience climate impacts first and worst. So, what is the problem with the current MRV systems? Most MRV systems depend on satellites, official records, and external experts. This means local observations are ignored, indigenous and community knowledge is excluded, and climate data becomes distant from real ground realities. So, there is a case study for this, which is the Tamil Nadu's solution, community based MRV. Now, Tamil Nadu addressed this gap through community-based environmental MRV. Let communities themselves generate climate data and make the data part of formal governance. So how it is done? Across Tamil Nadu, people already notice climate change daily. Example, farmers in Erode see short, intense rainfall and heat waves. Fishers in Kadalur face salinity intrusion and changing fish catch. And tribal communities in the Nilgiris observe forest moisture loss and erratic flowering. Earlier, these observations never entered into the policy decisions. So, what can we do now? Now, this community based MRV enables villagers to collect scientific, usable environmental data by combining traditional ecological knowledge, field monitoring of rainfall, temperature, soil, water, biodiversity, and livelihoods, and even carbon stocks and emissions. This data is uploaded to a digital dashboard, which is then used at village, district, and state levels. Governance becomes a partnership, not top down control. So, it was implemented on a pilot basis under the UK PACT program. This community-based MRV was piloted in 3 ecosystems like Nilgiris, Erode and Kadalur. Communities helped design indicators, tools and protocols themselves. Carbon feasibility studies showed village-level data could also support future carbon projects. So in less than 3 years, 3 villages became local climate knowledge hubs with trained people, instruments and digital systems. So what is the major outcome of this community-based MRV is? It is the creation of 35 key community stakeholders, farmers, fishers, women, youth, elders and tribal leaders. They now act as community climate stewards who are capable of collecting and interpreting climate data, identifying trends and supporting local decision making. Okay, the next article for the day is, are methane emissions in India being missed? See, methane is a very powerful greenhouse gas. It is 84 times more harmful than carbon dioxide over 20 years. It is what fuels landfill fires and it is also what heats the planet very fast. In India, about 15% of methane emissions comes from waste, especially landfills. This is important because waste is one sector where quick action is possible. Unlike agriculture or energy, we need long-term reforms. But the real problem is we don't actually know how much methane our landfills are emitting. Till now, India has depended on estimates, not real measurements. These estimates are based on how much waste enters landfills, old assumptions or data, and outdated state level data. So this method misses the local hotspots and hides serious leaks. Ground level monitoring is also difficult because equipment is expensive and it needs constant maintenance and it is hard to scale across cities. Now, the satellites are actually changing the picture. They can detect methane over large regions, pinpoint exact hotspots even within a landfill. Satellite studies show that actual methane emissions are far higher than official estimates, sometimes up to 10 times more. If you take examples from Delhi, the official data says the entire waste sector emits about 1 million tons carbon dioxide equivalent. In Mumbai, it shows 11%. Satellites show emissions 10 times higher. In Ahmedabad, it is 0.73 million tons, but satellites show 0.81 million tons. This means leaks are going unnoticed. Gas collection systems may be failing and we are underestimating the climate change. So why this matters now? Because they show serious safety risk like fires, explosions, and we have lost the opportunities to capture methane as fuel, weak climate reporting, and gaps in India's climate commitments. So what should be done? The solution is not satellites alone, but a combination. Satellites identify methane hotspots. Ground teams investigate the exact cause. Data sharing between city bodies and pollution boards. And we have to do real-time correction of estimates and action plans. So this will create a feedback loop. Like satellite sees the leak, ground team fixes it, and data improves future monitoring. See, India already has the framework for this, like Swachh Bharat Mission, municipal waste rules, and Govardhan scheme. Govardhan scheme is where waste is being converted into bio-compressed natural gas. Example is Indore, which already converts its waste methane into bio-CNG. So, if India links satellite data, urban waste management, and climate targets, then methane reduction can become a climate win, an energy gain, and a public health improvement. Okay, the next article is Fuel and Knowledge Economy. See, India has more than 1,100 universities and 45,000 colleges and teaching about 4.5 crore students. And our goal is to reach 50% gross enrollment ratio in higher education by 2035. To do that, access to quality knowledge and research material is crucial. So that is where this one nation, one subscription comes in. So what is ONOS? It is a government scheme that provides free nationwide access to top international academic journals like Springer, Wiley, Taylor and Francis across science, medicine, social science and humanities. It is implemented by UGC's Information and Library Network. And currently it covers 6,400 government institutions and it is benefiting about 1.2 crore students, teachers and researchers. But the problem is private universities and colleges are excluded from One Nation, One Subscription. This is a serious gap because nearly 80% of Indian students study in private institutions. Many private universities today are research focused, publish high quality papers and compete with top public institutions. They teach emerging fields like AI, robotics, fintech, cybersecurity and design. And they also invest heavily in digital libraries, faculty development and research infrastructure. So excluding them means most Indian students and researchers are left out. So, if we include private institutions into this ONOS, we will then improve our research quality and innovation. We can support students in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. It will help India build a strong knowledge economy and support the Anusandhan National Research Foundation, a goal of boosting research output. And this will not burden government finances since access is collective and cost effective. Okay, the next article for the day is Publication retractions from India have skyrocketed since 2022. See, retraction means that a published research paper is officially withdrawn by the journal. This happens when serious problems are found, such as plagiarism, that is copying others' work, fake or manipulated data, errors that make the results unreliable, and ethical violations like fake peer review, image manipulations, etc. See, why is this happening? Because there is misuse of technology. Earlier, people used paraphrasing software to rewrite copied papers just enough to escape plagiarism. But now, generative AI is being used to create fake research papers, fake data, and even fake peer reviews. And many such papers are never actually read by humans. They pass software checks and get published. And there is also weak rules and penalties. Current UGC rules are very lenient. Even if 60% of a paper is plagiarized, punishment is minimal. And serious misconduct like data fabrication or image manipulation is not clearly covered. and there is lack of central watchdog like research integrity office because many countries have it to investigate this misconduct, whereas India does not have this. So, what is the big takeaway from this article is India's research system is facing a credibility crisis, and AI has made misconduct more easier, but governance has not kept in pace with that. So, we need a central research integrity authority, stronger rules beyond plagiarism, and reform of ranking systems like NIRF. Because this national institutional ranking framework over rewards publication numbers. This pushes professors to publish at any cost, often at the expense of teaching quality. And penalties are also not transparent, so their impact is very weak. So we have to shift from quantity driven research to quality driven education. The next term is the Lunacrete. As the word suggests, lunar, which means moon, it is a moon made construction material, creating by mixing lunar soil with a binder like sulfur or special cement instead of bringing cement from earth. Okay. In this article, there was a river named Moei River. It is a river that forms part of the natural border between Thailand and Myanmar. It is a narrow but a strategic river often used for illegal crossings, especially at night. Because of weak enforcement and local collusion, it has become a key transit route for trafficking, including movement into cyber fraud compounds, especially in Myanmar. The next place in news is the Negev Desert, Israel. I want to use this opportunity to talk to you about another project. The project name is Ben Gurion Canal Project. It is a theoretical proposal to cut a canal through Israel's Negev Desert, creating an alternate route to the Suez Canal. And it was envisioned in the 1960s, and it aimed to challenge the Egypt's monopoly on the shortest trade route between Europe and Asia. However, this project faces immense challenges like logistical complexities, high cost, a longer route, and security concern. So, what is the Suez Canal? It is an artificial sea level waterway in Egypt connecting the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea and dividing Africa and Asia. It is a 193-kilometer long canal, and it is a key trade route between Europe and Asia. That's all for today. Thank you all for joining.